Yeah, that's what I told him. I told him all about Afghanistan, and you know what he said to me? He said, yeah, well, at least we don't have mean tweets anymore. Can you believe that? These people's TDS is still out of control. I know. All right, I'll see you later. All right, let's log in here. From the National Pulse, Joe Biden's State Department halted a Trump-era crisis response plan aimed at avoiding Benghazi-style evacuations just months before Taliban takeover. Excuse me, what? I'm sorry, what did you say? I said Joe Biden's State Department halted a Trump-era crisis response plan. Yeah. I know what you said. I'm just having a hard time believing what you're saying. Well, what I'm saying is Joe Biden's State Department halted a Trump-era... Yeah, okay, I get it. You want to dive into this, sucker? Okay, now this is just getting weird. Joe Biden's State Department moved to cancel a critical State Department program aimed at swift and safe evacuations of Americans out of crisis zones just months prior to the fall of Kabul. You're not saying what I think you're saying, are you? The Contingency and Crisis Response Bureau, which was designed to handle medical, diplomatic, and logistical support concerning Americans overseas, was paused by Anthony Blinken's State Department earlier this year. Notification was officially signed just months before the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan. So when did this thing actually go down? The document is dated June 11th, though the National Pulse understands the decision to pause the program may have come as early as February, both undermining the original Trump-era date for the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, and certainly giving the Taliban time to threaten American assets and lives on the run-up of Joe Biden's September 11th date of withdrawal. This document from the Deputy Secretary of State Brian McKinnon, which outlines the move to quash the Trump-era funding for this new bureau, was confirmed in March by the United States Senate. Wait, so you're telling me that Trump put in a contingency plan to get people out of a crisis-like situation, much like what's happening right now in Afghanistan, to avoid another Benghazi-like situation, and Biden put a squash to it back in March, but it just got approved back in June? That's exactly what I'm saying. You never really left earlier when I said goodbye to you, did you? Nope. Okay, talking to myself. It's the times we're in, man. The National Pulse understands that career officials inside the State Department objected to the Trump-era claim of creating a Contingency and Crisis Response Bureau with the express purpose of avoiding a future Benghazi-style situation for Americans overseas. But instead, Biden's team revoked the funding and the approval for the plan even as the Afghanistan withdrawal loomed. So what is his contingency plan right now? What is the president of the free world doing to get people safely out of there? According to the Washington Post, not much. Biden's shaky defense of his government's evacuation plan for Afghans. Yeah, I know, the Washington Post. Missing in President Biden's defense of Afghanistan's fall to the Taliban is a clear-eyed look at what appears to be one of his administration's biggest miscalculations these past few months. Miscalculations, you say? That's what's called an understatement. Washington Post, I mean. Tens of thousands of interpreters, fixers, and other Afghan allies and their families are still in the country and in grave danger. Many may not make it out. Many may lose their lives for their work with the Americans. Some may have died trying to hang on to airplanes taking off on Monday. They were that desperate to get out. And in response to this horrific scene, maybe even a greater horrific and calloused response from the president.
But we've all seen the pictures. We've seen those hundreds of people packed into a C-17. We've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
What did you think when you first saw those pictures?
His name was Reza, Joe, and he's a 17-year-old boy who fell from that plane fleeing the Taliban in hopes to get to Canada for a new life. But I mean, at this point, what difference does it make, huh, Joe?
What difference at this point does it make?
Back to the Washington Post article. On Monday, Biden essentially said that they got caught off guard and were stopped by the Afghan government from making mass evacuations earlier. That's unlikely to satiate his critics on both sides of the aisle. I think he's going to have blood on his hands for what they did, said Representative Michael McCall, Republican of Texas. Democratic Representative from Pennsylvania, Chrissy Houlihan, said the following, quote, "These past 2 days have been difficult to process, and not because the Taliban's progress was surprising. In fact, the opposite. We sounded the alarm, and our dire warnings fell on deaf ears." And the Republican senator from Nebraska, Ben Sass, said the following too, quote, "Ugh. I know, Sass. I hate to even bring him in here, but he's not wrong. Cut the crap about 1,800 relocations when there are tens of thousands who are stranded. And if that lack of action and cold dismissive response wasn't enough, Biden's State Department was forced to issue a humiliating statement warning U.S. citizens that the embassy in Kabul would be unresponsive to the requests for help, saying in a response, quote, "U.S. citizens wanting assistance in departing the country should register for another option that might be identified to return to the United States, and must complete this repatriation assistance request for each each traveler in their group, telling them do not call the U.S. Embassy in Kabul for details or updates about the flight. This form is the only way to communicate interest in flight options. Because filling out a bureaucratic request form is exactly what you're trying to do while the Taliban is charging down the runway. And because they're not busy enough stuffing their suitcase in a panic, they asked him to please review what the Department of State can and can't do for you in a crisis. And not only that, but check out what the Party of Compassion and Empathy's White House Chief of Staff has to say on his official Twitter account. Quote, I'm praying for all those who want out can get out, but everyone who is in Afghanistan right now should just chill. This is only day 2. This is only day 2 of this evacuation. Let's see how this plays out. And let's pull for and pray for this evacuation to work. This is an abject failure on all levels. Yeah, on all levels. And if this were President Trump, CNN's head would explode. Yeah, head would explode. Remember when President Trump crushed Soleimani and they said it was going to start WW3? Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, I do too. And this failure is not only incompetence or dereliction of duty in the very least, it may be more than that. And I'm not the only one saying that.
Is he incompetent? Has he been feebled by his age or whatever's going on?
Well, you know, Eric, it pains me to say this, but I think I can say it with some level of dispassion. And it seems to me that there is something more to it than just incompetence here. What the Trump administration attempted to do in October was give more focus to extracting Americans from crisis situations, whether it's the Afghanistan withdrawal writ large, as you say, or whether it's this specifically. What it seems like to me is that there is a cadre of national security people around President Biden who not only just are actively incompetent, but actually may not care in the round about American citizens, American foreign policy.
Millions, potentially billions of dollars in arms and munitions collected by the Taliban left behind, plane loads of hundreds of refugees pouring into the United States unvetted, and now extreme lack of leadership in a contingency plan to get people home. I'm not a campaign slogan guy, but I'm pretty sure this isn't how you build back better. But at the end of the day, the leader of the free world has got to have some accountability in answering some questions from the press, doesn't he?
Together, may God protect the United States of America. We'll get this done. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.